The truth sets you free. With the world's fastest reader, Howard Stephen Berg. Hi everyone, Howard Berg, world's fastest reader. Thank you for coming back to our show. We have a very special show today. We have the president of University of North Texas, Dallas, and he'll be speaking to us today. And as always, I like to begin each show with a learning strategy that can help you be more successful. So if you could put the first slide up, I'll teach you today the 5 things you need to learn. By the way, there's one of my students. That's Stephen Terry, 15 years old. He was finished in college. His mother made him go an extra year, graduated UTA at 16 with a 4.0, majored in economics. And his mother said he had to go to 16 because he couldn't get a driver's license till he was 16. He went to graduate school at OU at 18 for a master's degree in math. And they paid him $27,000 to teach math at 18 years old. Biggest drawback, he couldn't date undergraduates because he was a teacher. And he said, I'm 18, who am I supposed to date? I said, Stephen, you're getting a master's in math and teaching math. You don't have time to date. You'll date when you go home. Can you show the next slide, please? I'm going to show you there's only 5 things you need to learn. A lot of times people say to me, there's so much information in a book, I don't even know what to look for. And what if I say it's just 5 things? And I'll show you there. Vocabulary, names, numbers, dates, statistics, and formula, main ideas, and answers to questions. Let's go to the next slide. Did you know 85% of learning a new subject is just learning the words? And you say, well, what words? The ones that look different. They're bolded, they're italic, they're underlined. They're in a glossary or a word list at the end of the chapter. So we're going to learn those things first. Next slide, please. Names. Who's in your book and what did they do? Very important information. Next slide. Any number, date, statistical formula. What does it do? How does it work? Next slide. You know, in most nonfiction, there are headings and subheadings. So what are the 5 main ideas in every section and every subsection? Next slide. And here's, the last thing I was going to say is questions. You look for the questions and answers. How well does this work? We took a group of kids. This is a young group in Sugarland. The young man with the cast on finished high school biology in 1 week, the entire program. We gave him 300 essay questions, like explain the genetic code and how it works. And he got 3 questions wrong. So he was done with high school bio at 10 years old in a week. The young lady in the blue finished high school at 19. Doesn't sound very good, but as a junior in college on a full scholarship with a 4.0, the young man in the red cap is Stephen. Stephen was a Duke Talent finalist. Having one in a school of 5,000 is a good number. We had 5 in a school of 300. And the last one is the one I want to talk about, the young lady in the green, Erin. Her brother had Down syndrome, and they wanted to do something to raise money to help find a cure. So they created a mouse out of felt, produced it in China, and by themselves built a website. They then went on a public speaking tour. The oldest one was 15, the youngest was 11. They spoke for Rotary Lions. They went on Fox and NBC. And in 1 year, these children, aged 11 to 15, made $93,000. So imagine a youngster, 11 to 15, starting a company making $93,000 in their first year of business. But it gets better. They won the Silver Pyramid, which is the Academy Award in advertising, as the best not-for-profit business model in America. Not competing with children, but with not-for-profits in America. So you're 11 years old, your first year in business, you made $93,000, and you won the best not-for-profit business model in the country. I think that says a lot for how well learning just 5 things can help. We actually had a group of 11 to 15-year-olds, similar to that one, do a 30-chapter book in lifelong developmental psychology in 1 week, and 15 out of 18 students passed the CLEP for credit. So now you've got a powerful strategy. In my next show, I'm going to show you how to remember those 5 things when you find them. But now we have a wonderful guest, and we're going to ask him some questions about the college and what it's doing. First thing is, how do Texas demographic trends shape higher education policy?
Well, first of all, it's a good problem to have. Texas is the fastest growing state in the country, half the growth is coming from outside the country, half of it is coming from inside the country. So it's an incredible demographic ecosystem that is changing Texas more than probably any other state in the country.
Interesting. And where is it mostly people from South America, or is it really from all over the world?
You know, a lot of the students and folks come from Mexico, Central and South America, but Texas has been a magnet from South and Eastern Asia, Eastern Europe, Northern and Sub-Saharan Africa. They're coming from all over.
Interesting. So the next question would be, how does Texas differ from the rest of America?
Well, I think it is trending toward where America is going. I mean, even a state like Iowa, which a generation ago was mostly white, is now becoming much more diverse. Well, Texas is majority minority now, and I think the rest of the country will be there, you know, in not too many years.
And what have we had to do with our schools to accommodate some of these changes to make them effective?
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the Dallas Independent School District. It's a district that is maybe 4 or 5% Anglo. The rest are majority Hispanic, almost 70% Hispanic. The rest African American and Asian. And so 90% free or reduced lunch, which is essentially 100%. And so a lot of non-English speakers, which provide a lot of pressure to educate those kids. So it's an enormous challenge.
And how is it affecting the college as a result? Are you finding that they're coming in with the challenges resolved, or are there still challenges that you have to resolve after they get out of the school system?
Well, I think what we specialize in, we're the only four-year university. University of North Texas at Dallas is located in southern Dallas, and we have a law school downtown. The campus in southern Dallas, about 3,000 students now, and we have the capacity to grow to 25,000. But we have record enrollment this year, and most of our students come from southern Dallas, which is the most under-resourced part of town, and the southern Dallas suburbs from Grand Prairie to Mesquite. And so our students are generally first generation, and they come from household incomes in the bottom economic quartile, $30,000 a year for a family of four. And so what we have to become really good at is training that population, because we see ourselves as a pathway to social mobility, meaning if we can take these kids from the bottom economic quartile, give them a good education, they get good jobs. Like if you're a teacher, you're making $50,000 a year now in the Dallas Independent School District as a teacher. Well, you've just jumped a social class. And so that's part of what we're trying. Yeah, that's part of what we're trying to do.
Excellent. I know I was reading an article in Scientific American, and it said that a large percentage of our high school population is ill-prepared for the real world. And they said there was actually a surplus of jobs, even in this economy, but they were in areas of science and medicine, and people who can't read, write, and count are excluded from the better paying jobs, and the colleges were the solution that preparing them for those positions. Just out of curiosity, I know in the two-year colleges, they do a lot of remedial work with students that have those problems. Given the demographics in your school, is this something that your school would provide as well or not?
We do. We hire a disproportionate number of advisors. We also have strong tutorial staffs, both in writing and in math and even accounting. So our students also know that we place tutors in classrooms.
Oh.
Sometimes they're peers, better students who have gone through training. And it turns out that while our tutors who are adults are good, the tutors in the classroom, the other students gravitate to them. They relate to them. So we'll probably be doing a lot more of that.
I like that. It's actually, again, I owned a school, and we did a lot of peer-to-peer teaching. In fact, you think back to the little house on the prairie
Absolutely.
School, and it was students. The older students
Yeah.
meant the teacher couldn't do everything at the same time.
That's right.
And the interesting thing is the mentors actually learn too by sharing information. I think there's no better way to learn something than to teach it. So it's a win-win, and I think you're 100% right on that, that students relate better to their peers because they come from the same background, they have the same problems, and they don't feel intimidated. So that's brilliant. I didn't know you were doing that, and I want to congratulate you on that. That's an unusual thing. I don't believe all schools are doing that.
No, they aren't.
So what does the Texas higher ed ecosystem look like, and where do you fit into that ecosystem?
Well, one issue right now is that Texas is doing a good job graduating kids from high school. So their graduation rates now are in the 80s, 90%.
Really?
But, and that's a triumph. Unfortunately, about 20% are college ready, meaning their ACT scores are in the 24 range. And so there's a gap between graduating from college and being prepared for college. So that's the context for my answer about higher education. So about a little over 50% of kids try some kind of higher education right out of high school. That's low nationally. The national average is close to 70%. So we don't have enough kids going to even community colleges, and a lot of kids who go drop out. So to me, the big problem in the state's not high school dropout rate, while it's a problem. The big problem is college dropout rate. And so that's why our goals at our college is not only to recruit people, but to retain students and to help them graduate and graduate with marketable skills.
Brilliant.
And lifelong learning, the ability to adapt to probably the fastest changing economy in history.
What you just said, it just fits so much of what I've been reading. I read 70% of two-year college students on average are dropping out. So 30% graduate. And in four-year college, it's a little better. It's 50% graduate. And the average graduation now is taking 6 years instead of 4 years. And so it's putting a lot of pressure on the schools because they have students that should have been done taking up space for students that should be coming in. And how do you find that affecting what you need to do?
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's an issue. And part of the issue, you know, we were trying to set limits on debt because one of the issues in the country right now is students are leaving college with an enormous amount of debt. So we've set a limit. We want our students, if they're going to take on debt, not to be more than 60% of their first year salary. So at least we have something in mind that as we guide and discuss financial issues with students, we have that 60% in mind. You know, if they start to head toward that number, we know that's not good. And so we try to advise them around that. So it's important to get them out in a timely manner so they don't accumulate more debt.
I completely agree. One of the things we did with our kids is we taught them entrepreneurship skills, like that young group that made the 93,000.
Right.
And we were basically saying to them, look, even while you're in college, you could be an entrepreneur and start marketing instead of just getting a job, be in business. So even when you get out of college, there are a lot of opportunities, but if you don't find the one that's good for you, you could still make a good living.
Right.
And not owe as much as a home mortgage in debt. And too many kids today graduate owing a home mortgage worth of liability and not having a house that they can trade. So you're completely right. What you're doing is very, very important. There's a lot of activity around pre-K education in Texas right now. How does that fit in with what you need?
Well, first of all, we want to produce teachers who can specialize in teaching younger kids. I think it's important. But I think more importantly, it's crucial that kids get an early start, that they have good full-day pre-K access. We have a district near us, Lancaster Independent School District, where the superintendent was wise enough that he was actually going in, he calls it barbershops, ballrooms, grocery stores, to recruit parents with young kids to come to his school and for full-day pre-K. And so he's well over 90% of the eligible population are in pre-K. Well, for a poor community like Lancaster, that's modeling in a huge way. And so a lot of other districts are taking note of what he's doing. There's also a big effort in Dallas County to increase the pre-K enrollment, because the earlier kids start, the better they do. It's sort of scary when you look at the statistics. Kids come into kindergarten about 60% ready to learn, and that's an improvement. By the time they're in third grade, fewer than 40% are actually reading at grade level. Their math skills by middle elementary schools are a little under 40%. And then, as I said, high school graduation rates are up, but college readiness is down. So it's a huge problem to overcome. And I think the earlier we get started with kids, the better they're going to do later on.
Absolutely. For one thing, you're instilling a love of learning, and I think pre-K plays another important role for many parents. It gives them a chance to go to work.
Yes.
And parents who are working can provide better and healthier environments for their kids, better food, better diet. So it's a win on both sides as far as that would go.
And that was one of the problems, because Texas paid for half day of pre-K, but for a lot of parents that didn't work because they couldn't get away from work, and so they wouldn't put their kids in pre-K.
I've heard some sad facts about how much Texas spends per capita on students. It's one of the lowest rates in America. I think there were, I could be wrong, there's 2 other states that had less per student than our state. Given the economy, it's one of the best economies in the country. You have to wonder why students in education, which is the future, is such a low priority on a per capita basis. And is there anything we can do about that?
Well, I'm of 2 minds. I mean, right now, if you look at the state budget, about 25% of expenditures go to kindergarten through 12, and about 14% goes to higher education. So I think anybody in education wish those numbers were higher, but it's not terrible. The state, for instance, spends about 3% on prisons and imprisoning people. So they're at least spending a lot more on education than they are in prisons, and the 2 are related, unfortunately. If you drop out from high school, your chance of going to prison is quite high. So, I think the last legislative session was a good session for education, but the question is what's going to happen this time. What you hear is that there's going to be a greater emphasis on mental health, and of course the state has an issue there too, but that's also can be related to higher education and K to 12 education, so maybe the 2 will help. But no, I agree, a little more money per student would be good. But I think you look at a country like Finland, which is doing so well, their cost per student is not that high. They don't use a lot of technology in their classrooms. Most Finnish classrooms are blackboards and chalk. And but the difference is that in Finland, teachers are revered. They're esteemed at the same level as physicians or lawyers.
Wow.
And a little bit of that could really help in this country.
Yeah, teachers are not, well, I was a teacher for 10 years. It's like you're at the bottom of the pecking order in the work pool. People think it's easy. It isn't easy. It's a very hard job.
It's very hard. And I think one of the things we're trying to do is market careers in teaching, because it can be, for the right kind of kid, it can be a really meaningful career. But you have to really prepare them, because there's a reason the burnout rate for teachers is high. And a lot of times they're good pedagogically. They know their subject matter when they go into the classroom, but they're ill prepared to read the data, to manage parents, to understand the bureaucracy. But it can be taught in teacher training. And teachers need more clinical training. Right now in Texas, most teachers only have about a semester in the classroom.
That's not enough.
So at our school, we're moving that to at least a year to give them more clinical training.
I know when I taught, 2% graduated in the school I worked in, 2%.
Wow.
And I said, let me teach them how to learn like I do at the beginning of the show. And the principal said, it's not in the curriculum. I said, well, how can I ruin your numbers? You have a 2% success rate. And he caught me helping kids learn. I was in a bio class, and they couldn't do the homework in the bio book because they weren't taught how to use the book. So I was showing them how to find the answers to the questions. And he came in and said, what are you doing? And I told him, he said, you're not paid to do that. You don't teach learning. You're here to teach what's in the curriculum. I said, they can't do the curriculum. They need to know how to do their homework. And he wrote down I wasn't doing my job. I actually quit as a teacher after that to become an educator. I wasn't going to stay in a system that treated kids that way. Did you know, this is kind of an interesting statistic.
Excuse me.
You're welcome. Since the Great Recession, this is a good thing for you to know, 1% of the jobs have gone to non-college graduates. 99% of all new jobs in this country have gone to college graduates. So when someone says, why should I go to college?
Right.
That's a pretty good answer.
No, it is a good answer. And even in, you know, Texas still imports a lot of its talent. And you're absolutely right. I think the last number I saw in Texas, 65% are going to require at least an associate's degree to get a good job. And surely the number's higher than that, but that's sort of the ticket to entry.
Absolutely.
And 65% of the jobs is at least an associate's degree.
I tell people, because I'm often dealing with kids going to college, I have my programs called tuition insurance.
Yeah.
I actually finish, and they ask me, why should I go? And I tell them, oh, that's where the jobs are. I says, you know, it doesn't matter what your degree is in. Most people don't end up doing what they studied. I says, of course there are things we love, right, but having a degree in anything is better than no degree. Because when you go for that job, they look and see, do you have a degree? So I personally was a science major. That's a tough major. Lots of extra work with labs and lab reports. I spent 40 hours a week doing lab reports and labs. We had no computers back then. We did it by hand. But I loved science, and that's what I wanted to do. So I tell people, you don't have to do what I did. Just get a degree in something, and you're opening doors. And what's been your experience with that?
Oh, one of my favorite people that I worked with is a journalist, and he has a master's degree in electrical engineering from Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Oh my God, that's
so.
Harvard.
But he started working on the school newspaper, fell in love with it, got an internship, and it was a very difficult conversation that he had to have with his parents after they had put him through MIT undergraduate and graduate to say, you know what, Mom and Dad, I'm going to be a journalist. So, you know, I think it is important for people to follow their passion. They'll probably be happier lifelong if they do that.
Absolutely. But if they have to choose between getting a degree or following their passion, at least get that degree.
Get the degree.
It changes your life. And I'll tell you, as a student, a lot of the things I learned, I thought, why are they teaching this? Turned out to be so important later in life. Didn't realize the value of what I was being taught was invaluable. So last question would be, why do you think girls are generally doing better than boys in high school and college? And is there anything you can do about that to change it?
Well, I think first of all, I mean, it's one of the most misunderstood and underreported issues in the country. And really in the Western world, Sweden just announced a boys' emergency. England and Australia have done national studies on the subject, and it crosses all class and ethnic and racial lines, so it's very mysterious. And but last year, 58% of college graduates were women. At our school, we're 68% women and 32% men. So I think the real issue right now is that there needs to be more attention to it. There's not a lot that's understood about it. In 2 generations, it's flip-flopped. It used to be about the opposite.
Yes.
And now women are doing much better at that level. The issue with women, of course, is later in life. You know, why, having done so well in school and dominated in school, why aren't they running companies and colleges and
getting paid equally.
Exactly. So that's a big issue that needs to be addressed. But at a younger level, we need to understand what's going on with boys. What the national studies in Australia found was that they were not as literate as girls at the end of 3rd grade, and a lot of them never caught up. So there's probably something there, but anyway, we're trying very hard in our own campus to, by working with high schools to do better for boys. Our girls are doing quite well.
Thank you. Would you please put the graphic on the screen for the college so people can reach you? Can you tell us a little about what special things you have to offer before we finish and why people should get in touch with your office?
Yeah, we'd love to talk to anybody. We have a strong school of education. We just recruited a new dean from the University of Chicago. We have a strong business school. We produce a lot of bilingual business majors. We also have a very strong human service department, which produces mental health counselors and school counselors. And we have a good arts and science school. And our goal really is to train students to have good writing skills, the ability to speak clearly, and to solve problems.
Excellent. Well, we're getting close to the end. If you could put my graphic up for a second. For those of you who would like to reach me, we have programs on accelerated learning to make sure your kid gets through college. Most of my kids were finishing college in 2.5 to 3.5 years. One of them did it in just 6 months. And we also want to thank the Wheatland Dental Center as our sponsor with Dr. Harry Sugg. He's one of the best dentists in America, and please make sure you visit his office. You'll be amazed at what he does. And so as far as if you have questions and want to ask them and have them answered on the show, email me at mrreader@msn.com. You can go to my website, HowieBergSpeedReading.com. I have my reading program, my learning program. They're available for you to help your kids succeed. We call it tuition insurance because so many of my kids were going through college in less than 3 years. 3 to 4 years was normal, where it takes 6 years now for many others. And I love seeing successful students. And you don't want your kid living with you till they're 40, so you definitely want to make sure they get a good college degree and they get a good job. In today's knowledge-based economy, learning is the key to getting both things accomplished. And you can also send me an email if you'd like with questions you'd like to see answered on the show, because this show is all about you. And you can call me at 214-952-9150. Till next time, this is Howard Berg, the world's fastest reader, wishing you and yours the best of success. Thank you for taking the time to share with us. Tell your friends about the show, and we'll see you next week. The truth sets you free. With the world's fastest reader, Howard Stephen Berg.